Good evening and welcome. My name is Steve Spinelli, and I will begin by confirming that despite my name, I am not the president of Babson College. The Steve Spinelli you all know is my father, whose passion for business is matched by his love of family and of music. I'm a member of the Cornell University music faculty and the co-founder of a new arts advocacy initiative called One Composer. One Composer is a commitment to the music of historically erased composers and musicians, but at its core, One Composer is an effort to forge connections and to create value through unlikely partnerships. My mother, Carol, is here tonight as well, and being a musician herself, she has absolutely inspired our family's love of the arts. Over the years, I have observed the balance that my parents provide for one another, ambition and humility, success with a focus on charity, and intellectualism matched by humanity and emotionalism. Their marriage is, in so many ways, an unlikely connection and a hugely successful partnership. My relationship with my father is an equally unlikely and equally cherished partnership, and one that I value more than I could possibly articulate in such a short introduction. I will summarize by saying that you do not want me to drop your business plan, nor should you pay money to hear my father sing. One thing that we have established, though, through late night phone calls and long walks are so many parallels between the journey of the career musician and the experience of the entrepreneur. Throughout my career, I have marveled at top-tier musicians who hone their craft and reach the world's biggest stages. Oftentimes, these are not the same artists who maintain an open mind and live in search of novel, brave, and risk-oriented opportunities to make a mark on the world. Our friend Karen Slack is the total package. She sings on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera, but lives in search of new and creative ways to impact our world. She is the consummate leader and still the ideal team player. A note on the teamwork that produced the music you will hear tonight. Karen's performances are accompanied by pianist Laura Ward. Laura is the ultimate collaborator of the keyboard world, and her longtime support of stars of the opera stage brought her most recently to the Capitol Dome as the accompanist for Denise Graves during the internationally broadcast memorial service for the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Speaking of teamwork, I would like to introduce you to my wonderful colleague and business partner.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tamara Acosta, and I am on the music faculties of both Ithaca College and Cornell University. And along with Steve, I'm also a proud co-founder of One Composer. This initiative has evolved out of our mutual recognition of the need for greater diversity in our classrooms and performance spaces, and also out of a desire to further human connection through the arts. In establishing a new arts initiative, we have found ourselves in many situations that have been outside of our comfort zones, meeting with attorneys regarding complicated copyright law, forming our own business plan, and negotiating with top-tier arts organizations. Our signature event this season took us to the Kimmel Center for a collaboration with the Philadelphia Orchestra and pianist Michelle Kahn. If you're interested, you can view this performance, dubbed a knockout in the Philadelphia Inquirer, on their digital stage through Wednesday by visiting philorg.org. We really could have used some of the Babson business savvy along the way. Perhaps on a similar level, some of you may have never been to the opera or don't feel particularly comfortable in the world of classical music. I encourage you to open your hearts and your minds as you listen today. I promise you that no tuxedos or ball gowns are required. I have been to the opera in jeans more times than I can count. I am confident that we are more alike than different and that we have much to learn from each other. We are thrilled to share with you today the incredible artistry and generosity of our friend and colleague, Ms. Karen Slack. Karen has appeared on the stages of the world's most renowned concert halls and opera houses, but as you will hear, her talents don't end there.
Ms. Slack is the arts equivalent of a major league pitcher or a leading CEO. She is at the top of her field, and there is so much to learn from her voice, her journey, and her wisdom. As you listen in, we encourage you to prepare any questions that you might have. She is so eager to interact with all of you at the conclusion of this session. Without further ado, we welcome Karen Slack.
Karen, we are so thrilled to have you here, taking some of your time.
Thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here and thrilled to connect, right?
Oh, and I think our audiences doesn't yet know what they're in store for. So I'd like to just start by getting a little bit of a sense of your history. So am I correct that you were born and raised in Philadelphia?
Yes, born and raised in Philadelphia, North Philly proud, as I always say.
Nice.
Good things come out of North Philadelphia. Yes, all of my education, all of my schooling, I went to the Settlement Music School and the Creative and Performing Arts High School, and I went to Curtis Institute of Music, so I am definitely all the way.
Wow, you are Philly through and through.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
So I remember you telling me a really fascinating story about how you first were exposed to opera. Mm-hmm. Can you share that with everybody?
Absolutely. So I always loved classical music, but not even understanding what it was. You know, I would listen to it on the radio to go to sleep at night, right? But my high school teacher loved opera, and he blasted like Callas and Norman and both of the Prices, Corelli, Domingo, every day down the hall blasting. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing music. But we were, the choir was a big vocal arts program at the Creative and Performing Arts.
Okay, that was there. Yeah, I would like you to tell me what is in the water in Philadelphia that has produced so many phenomenal singers, with you being at the top of that list. Oh. I mean, there really are.
Mm-hmm. Eric Owens, Kenneth Overton, Patti LaBelle, if you want to go into,
absolutely.
Yeah, Florence Quivar, Marietta Simpson. I mean, the list. I think it's in the cheesesteaks and the water ice.
Okay, so forget the water. It's in the cheesesteaks. All right, I know where I need to go before I leave Philadelphia.
Exactly. Okay. It's definitely in the food.
Well, what I don't want to do is keep our audience from hearing that exquisite voice of yours. So I think we're going to launch into Ride on Jesus. Mm-hmm. Do you think you could share a little bit about this piece? Well,
I love this arrangement of Ride On. Everyone knows the Ride On King Jesus, the Hall Johnson arrangement. But this arrangement was done by an African Canadian composer, Nathaniel Dett. Mm-hmm. And so many of us grow up listening to the spirituals, and Ride On is one of the popular ones. Ride On, Conquering King, I want to go to heaven in the morning. It's a great, great spiritual.
Wonderful. Okay. So Karen, you mentioned that you went to the Curtis Institute, and I just quickly wanted to share with everybody, if they're not familiar with what the Curtis Institute is. The Curtis Institute is the most elite conservatory in the world, conservatory of music. Their acceptance rate is lower than Harvard's, right? And I'm just curious, did you, growing up in Philadelphia, know about Curtis? Did you dream of Curtis? What was that path like for you?
Actually, I did not know anything about Curtis.
Really?
Interestingly enough, even though I, graduating high school, and about 16 or 17, I decided I wanted to be an opera singer, but did not know about Curtis. Everyone always talked about Juilliard or Westminster Choir College or, places like that. And so, how I even got into Curtis is a crazy story, but I had won the Rosa Ponselle International Competition for the vocal arts.
The youngest winner ever, I believe.
The youngest
18?
winner ever. 18, the youngest winner ever. Yes, I had no idea who Rosa Ponselle was or anything or how big Alice Tully Hall or Lincoln Center. No idea. I just was like, I just wanted to win money to go back to school, right? To come back the next year, won the whole competition, did my 2 years in the program, and they kicked me out because I did not want to make my big Lincoln Center recital debut. I didn't think that I was ready. So I had this meeting with this big agent at CAMI. I didn't even know what CAMI was at the time. It was like 19 and a half. Like who
wow.
Know anything. And so she's telling me, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do all these things. And I was like, I don't know what she's talking about. So I told them I didn't want to do the recital. They kicked me out, sent me back to Philadelphia. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I had like 1 year of school and like 2 years of intensive, classical operatic vocal training. And I'm sitting in the Wendy's downtown Philly, and these 3 kids come over to me, and they're like, you're that girl that won the competition. Because they remember me from being in Opera News. What? Random, right? And I'm just like, who are these people? And they're like, yeah, why don't you come back to Curtis? And and I'm like, okay, sure. And we had a jam session in Curtis Hall. And one of the kids went back and told Michael Eliason, who ran the program at Curtis, that they met that girl who won the competition and that she lived here and, whatever. And Michael called me the next day, and that's how I got a Curtis audition. That's how I got into Curtis.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. And not long after that, you made your Metropolitan Opera debut.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Crazy.
Can you share with us, at that point you had done some pretty significant singing, mm-hmm. but that is a whole nother level, a whole nother size space, mm-hmm. right, to fill. Yes. What was that experience like? Did it feel like the next natural part of the progression?
Heck no. Heck no. I always feel like my life has been like, I look around and I've landed in the space that I only look at in books and I think about and I dream about. And I'm just one day all of a sudden just dropped in, It really is crazy because I was in the Met Finals. So my last year of the Adler Fellowship, I was in the Met Finals, didn't win. I was devastated, like literally like laying on the hotel floor thinking that my whole life is over because as you know, as a singer, that's one of the pinnacles as a young singer. So you got to win the Met competition. And so when I didn't win, I was devastated. I'm like, oh, my life's over. I'm never going to sing. And ridiculous. And if you make it, the rules used to be, and I think they still are, if you make it to the semifinals, you can apply for a grant so that you can professional, development.
Yeah.
Grant, whatever. And so I was like, I'm going to go get my $5,000, and I needed money because I was going to Europe to do some auditions. And I went back and I sang for them, and they were like, started asking me questions like, well, what did you sing in the finals? And what did you sing in the semis? And, just kind of just trying to, I guess, reacquaint themselves. And they gave me the whole $5,000 because normally what they do is give you half and half, I guess, and have you come back and sing again. But
I think they might have been second guessing their decision.
I think so because they gave you the whole thing, right? And then they said, can you come back in 3 months and do a house audition on the stage? So I went back and I sang the house audition, and I got the Louisa Miller cover.
That's just a fascinating story. It just seems to go along with all the other really interesting stories of your path.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really perfect time to introduce our next selection that you're going to be singing. One of the most iconic soprano arias in the repertoire.
Yes.
Can you share with us what that is?
Yes, it's Visi d'arte. I lived for art. I lived for love. It's Tosca's Lament, one of my dream roles that I've actually gotten a chance to do. It's an iconic role. It's an iconic aria. All sopranos have to make their way through Visi d'arte, but it really is a testament and a tribute to all of us artists,
Right.
you know, and she finds herself in a predicament, but she's saying, you know, I've given my jewels and my voice and everything, but why, Lord, why am I still, you know, in this situation?
Still struggling.
Yes, still struggling. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you. So one experience that I love that you have had is like very few other opera singers ever have or ever do. And that was your time in the film industry. Can you please tell us what that was and how that came to be?
Amazing, right? It's one of these things where you just
Dropped in.
Like, oh my God, now you are singing with your voice, acting to your voice in Tyler Perry's movie for Colored Girls. Wow. Crazy. So Mr. Perry had this idea that at the, highlight of the movie that he would have a big operatic moment, of course, because as we know, opera is the height of all the emotions. Right. It's the best. You're the best. But he had this idea to have, like, I guess Jesse Norman, Kathleen Battle, and like Leontine Price, and someone told him, no, that's not going to happen.
Even Tyler Perry can't get that.
Even Tyler Perry can't do that, right? And so I think the studios sent an email to all of the agencies that had African American singers, which is very few, but that's a story for another time. And we all had to submit our CDs and recordings to Aaron Zigman, who was he wrote the piece because it's not a real operatic piece. Like he wrote a piece, gorgeous.
That suits you so beautifully.
Which is interesting because before he wrote the music, he had written, well, that's not true. He was writing the music after he heard me. Okay, yeah. So I submitted my recording, my agent did. He picked my recording because he said your voice was the clearest, the cleanest, and it didn't have a lot of vibrato because, of course, opera singers, when they hear us, they just hear certain things. So at the time, my voice was, even more lyric than it is now. But he loved the quality of my sound. And so they flew me to LA, sent me the music on the plane.
Oh, no.
Yeah, flew me to LA, and I did the demo. But what they forgot was to hire 2 other sopranos, because there's 3 parts, 3 women in the piece.
So what were they thinking, that they didn't need the other 2, or?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I wound up recording all 3 parts. But they loved the demo so much that they used the demo of the first and third soprano of my voice. Then they picked another soprano. Actually, I recommended one of my friends who I knew Aaron was going to like her voice. I'm like, you're going to like her voice, just hire her, whatever. They hired her. And so she came to sing the second soprano part. So they flew us back to LA to record. And I'm thinking that's it. Like, I didn't think that I think they were going to have some skinny, like, cute little actress to do the singing parts. But they said, no, you're going to be in the show. And I was like, wow, I'm going to be in the movie, Woohoo! Yes, and so it was amazing. So a few months later, we went down and recorded the video, the movie part, filmed the movie in Atlanta at the Cobb Center, where where
he's got his whole studio there too.
Absolutely.
Right? So it was in the
Yes, it was in the Cobb Center, in the big, where Atlanta Opera does their thing. So so it was amazing. And Janet Jackson's in the balcony, and all of these. It was just fantastic, and to get to walk the red carpet. I didn't even know how to walk the red carpet, because in opera we really don't.
No, there's not many red carpets.
No, that's just for maybe a gala or something like that. But so that was an amazing experience, and to be at the party and kind of, it's interesting. You meet all the people, right, and no one knows who you are, and then they show the film, and then the party is afterwards. Well, honey, I was the star. They loved it. They were like, oh my God, that's the lady who sang the opera piece. And so,
in talking all of us together, we've really drawn some parallels between the Curtis experience and the experience at Babson, both which involve a full community of hyper-focused people. At Curtis in the arts and music, and at Babson in business. And it really requires young people making big decisions about what they want their future to look like. And I think we can all say that there's a lot of real benefits to that kind of, hyper focus.
Yes.
What would you say were the real positives? What was the advantage of being part of a community like that?
The discipline. The focus on the art, making the art, of making your art. Right. So there is a level of bravado, and also the carriage and expectation, and all of these things. If you're healthy in your mind and your spirit, they just help launch you in a different way.
Interesting.
When you graduate.
And
Yeah.
I would imagine, don't you think, that it's probably similar in a place like Babson where the education is really focused and
Yes.
everybody around you is operating at a very high level, and that's
Yeah.
motivational, can be competitive, right? And
Yeah,
in
iron
good
sharpens
ways and-
sharpens iron, right?
right.
Uh-huh.
So so the benefits are clear. What would you say was you missed?
Really learning how to build a business. You know, they did everything for us. They taught you every note, taught you every word. It gave you so much access to everything, you know, all the best, all the best, all the best. Did your taxes for you. All of the things. We had all of everything taken care of. And so when you get out, you're like, help, like, what am I supposed to do now? Go,
Like,
birdie, fly. And you're like, you know?
It's just that ability that for you to, you stay open and flexible and you observe and you pivot. And that I don't see in a lot of artists. What do you attribute that to? How did that develop?
You know, it's the only way I know. It's so natural for me. It's so natural for me to go, okay, that's that way. Let's try this way. Or immediately when I hear something, I think of already 5 ideas. I don't know where it's a divine. It is a divine. It is the ancestors. It is my parents. It is all of the people, I think, before me that come through me, you know. I'm always knowing that I am sound in my talent. I'm sound in what I have to say, and I'm sound in my place, that I have a place in every space that I go, everywhere. And I'm sound in no one's a stranger, and that everyone is important. And that's where I lead from.
Another incredible project that you've just launched is this #SayTheirNames film that I want to encourage people, if you can tell them how they can view it. I have no doubt that it's going to be on a lot of people's minds and out there. I truly hope it is important. And can you share what that is?
Sure. It's one of my heart passion projects. I'm sitting on a lot of incredible projects, and I've been sitting on them for a while. But as an opera singer, you know, you only have this one lane, and then there are some people who get to like veer off and do their own thing. They get, you know, because of the kind of career that they have, and they get to do their own projects. But I've been sitting on all these things, and #SayTheirNames, women of the movement. It is to spotlight all of the women who have started social justice movements. Sojourner Truth, with the women's rights movement and abolitionist movement, and Ida B. Wells, the anti-lynching movement, you know, all Black women. Fannie Lou Hamer, of course, with the voting rights movement and her superb contribution. I can't say enough. She's really my hero. She's one of them, one of my angels. And Kimberly Crenshaw, who is actually the founder. She actually brought the intersectionality, you know, this term, the intersectionality, to the forefront. She is the executive director for African American foreign policy and the creator of the #SayHerName. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that went viral, of course, after I think Sandra Bland was murdered. And you know, it was #SayTheirNames was born out of frustration as an artist, as a Black woman, of not getting the opportunity to tell my stories in the lyric theater. Always being someone's mother or someone's girlfriend or someone's wife, and I'm like, these women have stories, you know, to tell, and we're not victims, and it's not always about trauma and supporting some man's, you know, some man's, you know, life and his vision. And so it really is out of frustration of being able to tell our stories, you know. And I've created a couple roles in opera, and I've done a couple of chamber pieces, and so I am thankful to Lyric Fest. So you can go to lyricfest, FEST.org, to view the movie.
What are ways that you could imagine the benefit of bringing in a creative spirit and that kind of flexibility, right? It seems like when it all comes together, the opportunities just grow exponentially.
Yes.
Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. Because as an artist, what's the first thing you learn? Discipline. You
Mhm.
learn how to learn things. You learn how to retain, and you learn how to work with other people.
Mm.
You must.
Good point.
That's the only way you survive.
That's right.
As an artist, you have to walk into a space with people you've never met before, never worked with, and you have to bare your soul.
Right.
And you have to do it well enough that you get rehired, because it's not about the first job.
That's right.
It's about being re-engaged.
Getting another one.
Okay, exactly, exactly. And so that pivoting, that the positivity, the openness, the willingness to try certain things. I think that, that in business, you need all of those things.
Absolutely.
The personality, the savviness, the learning how to fill people out, when you're speaking to them, and being able to pivot in a split second. I've had to go into spaces and places, and when I go in and I'm like, go in and work the room.
That's
and I
right.
tell my husband, let's go. It's time. We don't think of ourselves as a business, because we only trained to think as artists.
That's right.
And I've learned over time, and even talking to Dr. Spinelli, when he was telling me, no, you are an entrepreneur. And I'm like, what? And I've done like network marketing. I've done all of those things, and I've been really, really good at doing, selling products and stuff like that, but never tying the art. But now I am.
Isn't that interesting? Because the way you identified yourself was as an artist first, that had to do business things, right?
Yes.
And now it sounds like you really are moving into a place where you can see yourself as the business person.
Absolutely. Because now when I'm going into creative spaces, I'm thinking, how can I be the boss?
Ooh.
How can I produce?
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking like, how can I get my name from soprano or artist or singer to producer?
Nice. One of the most gorgeous songs in the repertoire that actually has a really positive, uplifting message.
Yes.
Which is the song Morgen by Strauss.
Tomorrow the sun will shine again, right?
Right. And we will all unite.
Yes.
Sure is a message we could all use right now.
Absolutely.
Let's enjoy that. So Karen, out of that spirit of flexibility and seeking out other opportunities and us recognizing that in you, the project One Composer that Steve Spinelli and I have been working on so much this past year led us straight to you. And we are so thrilled that we've made that connection. I'm so happy that we've reconnected after all of these years. And it's just, I'm trying to lead into this final piece. This is a piece by Undine Smith Moore. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about her, a little bit about this piece and the power of it, and how so important to get this music out to people. So I'm thrilled that you chose to share it.
Yes, I mean, I came into knowing Undine Smith Moore through her very popular song "Love Let the Wind Cry," and every soprano who should and shouldn't sing it sings this piece. But what I loved about her writing, it's very lyrical, very dramatic, but also just she cuts right, she goes straight to the heart. And I don't know enough about her. You know, it's only just a couple of songs that we all know have exposure to, and hopefully more of her music. Like so many female composers, it's like their things are stuck in the basement at somebody's house.
They are.
You know, and or some, you know, family member or whatever, you know, and it needs to see the light of day, or stuck in some library in the South somewhere, tucked behind something else that's tucked behind something, like brilliant, genius pieces that need to see the light of day and need to be sung by voices, people who are out there, you know, singing in the big halls and the big theaters and the big spaces. I thought the Rolls Royce type of, you know, instruments. And we talked about that earlier, that so many of the Black composers don't get their music sung by the best artists, a lot of students, a lot of like, you know, I want to be very respectful, but you know, beginners, you know, but this piece I came across from a friend of mine, Angela Brown, the fantastic dramatic soprano, and she sang this piece, Watch and Pray. And the song is the conversation between a child and a mother. And I always say it's probably the night before they were going to get sold as enslaved people. And so it's the child asking the mother, you know, is Master going to sell us tomorrow? And the mother said, yes, but watch and pray. You know, watch and pray. Watch, because you don't know. You know, it could happen, it might not happen. Or watch and pray once. I always find that maybe later on in the piece she keeps saying watch and pray, because when we are separated, you need to watch and you need to pray to take care of yourself. So I always question whether or not to sing this piece, particularly oftentimes if I'm the only Black person in the room full of a white audience, and how that's going to react, how people are going to react and respond to repertoire. You know, I always save unless I'm doing a full evening of African American art song, I always save my spirituals and my art songs for the end of the night, because that's when I really feel like I can kick my shoes off, I can let my wig down and kind of be, you know, be my most free and expressive. And I always question how it's gonna land, but I have to say, consistently, it lands straight to the heart and so beautifully for any audience that I sing. And so
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity, for your generosity in everything that you've given us today. As we look to wrap this up, sadly, I'm wondering if you have a particular message that you can share. I know you've moved into a mentoring position more in teaching and with young people. I wonder if you have a message to the teachers and the students and the administrators and people joining us that you can share about kind of what this is all, bringing it all back together, right? The balancing of the repertoire that you've chosen, your impact on it, and the creativity and the business and what are your thoughts?
For me, I feel like it's what we talked about, staying flexible. Flexibility, open heart, generous, even when you're not getting it back, because it doesn't matter, you're giving it. I tell my singers, focus on the things that you have control over, and everything else is none of your business. That's with anything, right? It's not just about being an artist. You are the vessel. Things come through you. You are to give to other people in whatever way that is.
Right, and whatever your industry is.
Whatever
right?
your industry is. And then the universe, the things pour back into you, and it's a reciprocal thing. It's always moving through you, like breath. Us singers and wind players, we all understand that everything has to move through you. Energies, thoughts, all of the things. Everybody you meet, sometimes you don't want people to, the energies or whatever, but again, it's a lesson, right? All of it is a lesson. Like I said, when I meet somebody, they are not a stranger.
Right.
It all aligns and syncs with one another. And I think that we need to think like that. It would change people's
really would.
opinion about each other and how we navigate, how we move, how we, if we feel more connected to each other, if you meet someone, and always from a place of, hey, very nice to meet you, with real generosity, with real positivity,
And so I think you might have put your finger on that feeling of being dropped in the storybook. It's not that. It's that you've stayed open, that you've brought that to you, right?
Yeah.
In creative ways, in business, in just the way that you move through. And we are so, so grateful to have shared this time with you. And we wish you all the best going forward. You're not going to get rid of us.
The plan is to stay connected.
Excellent.
And to just do more. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you are enjoying the performance and program so far. My name is Curtis Johnson. I'm a proud member of Johnson's class of 2023, my class. I am also the CFO and future president of the Black Student Union, the general manager of the Radio Club, a part of Peers on Wellness, a college advancement ambassador, and a member of the Hearing Board. I'm honored to be here with Ms. Karen Slack to take your questions after that wonderful performance. Karen, welcome to Babson. Your performance, words, and lessons were truly exceptional.
Hello, happy to be here. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you so much.
And we're so grateful for the gift of your music and stories and appreciative of your time here today, taking live questions from our audience. Our audience, by the way, is comprised of over 500 Babson community members, friends, and family. Welcome to everyone joining us. We're thrilled to have you here. We heard from several of our guests before the show with questions for you, Karen, so we'll start with those. As a reminder to our audience, there's still time to ask questions of Karen. You can put those into the chat. Let's get started with the first question. Question 1. Dick Campbell would like to see more diversity on the opera stage. What can be done to promote diversity, and how do we engage singers early enough to make a difference?
Well, I think everyone thinks about diversity only in the front of the theater, only on stage. But I think getting diversity on the front, on the stage, it starts in the behind the scenes. It starts in administration. It starts on boards. it starts on companies really being intentional about not only getting the best artistic talent, but also grooming the next generation of administrators, acknowledging the talents that it takes to run the business of opera in multiple, I guess you say, in multiple facets, right? And I think that we get diversity. Well, listen, I always say everyone thinks that singers of color or artists of color, like that we don't like opera, which is crazy because all of my friends and all of my closest colleagues are people of color. And so the idea that Black people don't like opera or that we're not exposed to opera, all you have to do is look at a lot of the conservatories. They are there. You know, a lot of us get exposed to opera. As you saw, my first introduction to opera, I was quite young. I was about 14 or 15, and I know that doesn't happen all the time. But I think that going back to music in the schools is very important. I played the violin in the 4th grade, which is not, it's unheard of now a days in most public schools in most of the inner city cities of America. But we need to go back to that. We need to go back to art in the schools and supporting that as not as a hobby, but as actually something that is a viable part of education. And yeah, I think that that's how we change the theater.
Oh, wonderful question. On the same note of acknowledging talent, we have a question from James Papulis. He's asking if you have ever experienced racial bias when auditioning for certain opera roles.
Yes, I have, and I'm very open about speaking about the inequities in casting. You know, it's easy to get a racially specific role, say in Aida or Porgy and Bess, you know, particularly Porgy and Bess, because Porgy and Bess, to do a full production of it, you can only have Black singers, you know, so that is in the clause that the Gershwin Foundation put in. But if I wanted to go now specifically for certain roles that are technically maybe Wagner, technically done by we call them blonde roles, you know, white sopranos, or some of the Richard Strauss repertoire, I do, you know, my agents and I, we do get some pushback on those things. But you do have some administrators and some music directors who cast for voice first, right? There are some, but we're sort of getting back to that, and not about just looks based casting, but also really on vocal ability. But yeah, there's still a lot of I don't know, something happened between the 80s and where you saw so many singers of Black singers particularly singing on the big stages of the world, and then something happened in the 2000s where we just went backwards, and I can't really say that I can put my finger on why that is, but yeah, we need to do better about that. That's another reason why we must push for diversity in arts administration.
Well, I know that must have been really difficult for you to go through that period of time. On the same notes of casting, see what I did there with notes. Hannah Reich saw you sing the role of Sister Rose in Dead Man Walking at the Atlanta Opera. She would like to know what your favorite opera role is and what has been your favorite opera house, except, of course, the Curtis Institute, my namesake.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming to see Dead Man Walking. That's one of those operas that never gets, you know, old, and I hope everyone gets a chance to see that, Jake Hagee's Dead Man Walking. But we always say my favorite opera is the one I'm doing at the moment. Although I'm not doing anything at the moment on stage because of COVID and everything is closed. But I would have to say I have an affinity for Puccini. I've not gotten a chance to do Butterfly yet, but I'd love to do Madame Butterfly. And I love Tosca is one of my favorite parts that I got to sing Visitarti, the aria from. And also I love Strauss, Richard Strauss, and Verdi. I love to sing Leonora in Il Trovatore, which is one of Verdi's great operas. So,
Wow,
and anything that pays.
True. I definitely feel that with internships as well, anything that pays. With your extensive career in singing, I know you've had a lot of great mentors. What is the best advice you have ever received about your singing?
Mm. Sing to express, not to impress. Sing from your soul, from your heart. That's what that meant. That all, always being intentional with every gesture, every accent. But sing to express, not to impress, is the best advice I've received about singing.
Intentionality, that's so important. Joy Yang has a great question to wrap us all up, especially after that great answer. Do you have any advice for Babson or business students who are interested in the music industry?
Wow. When Dr. Spinelli approached me about coming in and sharing my gift with you all, I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna say to these business, students and alumni? But I think artists need to think more of themselves as a business. And I think I said that in my talk. And I also think that business people need to come into our world and embrace us as artists to support that. There's always this issue of, should business people run arts organizations? Because opera is a business first. It is an art form. Yes, 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 yes. It is an art form. But when you're running an opera company or an orchestra, it is a business. There are dollars and cents. You have to raise money in order to keep the ship going. In Europe, they're state funded. It's not the same like in America, where we rely solely on the kindness of subscribers and donors in order for us to do the thing that we love the most. And so I think if at every level of our industry, from the general directors, the artistic directors, all the way through to the performing artists, think as a business and learn as business people. We learn how to do the thing, we learn the skill, but we don't ever learn how to even maximize the skill so that we have life after the performing art. Because there's a whole other life after you can't do this thing anymore. And those are who are the most successful, are the ones who have figured out that this is a business. Branding, having multiple streams of income, being able to do a multitude of things, and learning how to cultivate the art as a business. And I think you guys learned that in business school. You learn all these different skills that we as artists don't technically learn. And anyway, thank you all for the people who donate to the opera and donate to the theater and and the orchestra in the business sector to keep us all being able to do our art.
Wow, I wish I could ask you to expand on that. I know there's an entire story behind that answer, but unfortunately, we're nearing the end of our time together, Karen. We have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, connections, and lessons that you brought to us today. I know your journey will inspire so many. Thank you for your time and talents. It is due to Babson's president, Steve Spinelli, and his wife, Carol's generosity that we were fortunate enough to have Karen Slack with us today. Thank you for your gifts of this wonderful event. It is now my pleasure to introduce President Spinelli and Carol Spinelli to give some closing remarks.
Hello, I'm Carol Spinelli.
And I'm Steve Spinelli, the president of Babson College. In our lives, we are fortunate to be surrounded by music. Carol is an organist and conductor, and our son Stephen is a conductor and pianist who also won a Grammy Award in 2018 as a choral singer with The Crossing. We've also benefited from music's ability to uplift, rejuvenate, and expand perspectives. It is a feeling we wanted to share with others.
We hope that you enjoyed watching this incredible event and found it as inspiring as we did. We wanted to take a moment and thank everyone who made it possible. Thank you to Curtis Johnson, Tamara Acosta, and Steve Spinelli of the One Composer Initiative.
Obviously, as parents, we were delighted to have Steve take part in this event. We find ourselves inspired by his work, passion, and drive every day. And we are happy to introduce him to the Babson community.
Last, but certainly not least, we wanted to thank Karen Slack for sharing not only her amazing talent with us, but also her insights. Karen's voice is so moving, so beautiful, but I also was riveted by what she had to say.
Karen spoke about entrepreneurial thinking in the life of artists. Her experiences illustrate Babson's fundamental belief that an entrepreneurial mindset is relevant and necessary everywhere, from the boardroom to the concert hall.
More than that, Karen spoke about the importance of making sure that all musical voices, representing all experiences in humanity's rich tapestry, are included and heard. That's an important conversation to have, particularly during Black History Month.
At Babson, we take that conversation seriously. We are a community strengthened and enriched by a diversity of races, cultures, backgrounds, and perspectives. We are united by a shared vision to drive positive change in the world by creating social and economic value. Pursuing equity and inclusive excellence continues to be an ongoing and important part of our collective mission. In fact, it has been established as one of the 3 critical few objectives for the college to achieve.
This was a special event in so many ways, and so thank you for joining us. We believe music brings people together, and it was wonderful to come together with you. Take care.